So yesterday we were talking about the reason that the Buddha set up the precepts. So there was the 9 points. There's 10 points. 9 are in the detailed explanation. 1 is the general explanation. And the 9 in the detailed explanation are broken up into 3 groups. First one, to create harmony within the Sangha, and the second, to transform society, and the third, to bring about individual liberation. Okay, so we talked about the first 2 yesterday, and then we were in the middle of talking about to bring about individual liberation. You know, how each precept is designed to help us do that. So we talked about the first 2 points in that, of subduing the restive and encouraging those, or stabilizing those who have a sense of integrity. Okay, so it gives you direction in your practice. It gives you the precepts give you, they delineate the mental area and physical and verbal area in which you're going to operate. So you're saying, I'm not going to do all these other kinds of things because I'm aiming for liberation, I'm aiming for full awakening, and these kinds of things interfere with it. Okay, so here we have to talk a little bit about naturally negative actions, and then actions proscribed by the Buddha. So among the precepts, some precepts have to do with naturally negative actions and some don't. Okay, so naturally negative action is one in which, like, pretty much every sentient being who does it is going to have an afflicted mental state. Okay, so those are actions like killing, stealing, unwise and unkind sexual behavior, lying, those kind of actions. Pretty much everybody who does them is going to have a negative intention. So those actions, whether you have a precept or not, are destructive karma, okay, and are going to lead to suffering in the future. Those actions, the negative karma from them needs to be purified by means of the 4 opponent powers. Okay, so you have regret is the first one, and then refuge and bodhicitta is the second one. Making a determination not to do the action again is the third, and then a remedial action is the fourth of the 4 opponent powers for purification. Okay, so any kind of destructive karma we create, whether it's a lay person or a monastic, then it has to be purified in that way. Okay, then there's the actions that there's precepts governing them. So some naturally negative actions, in fact most of them, have precepts governing them, and we voluntarily take the precepts. So if you're a lay person, the 5 lay precepts. Monastic, then there's the novice ordination, the training ordination for women, and the full ordination for both men and women. Okay, so some of the precepts within the prescribed actions, proscribed, not prescribed, proscribed actions of the Buddha are not naturally negative, which means that they could be done with a neutral motivation, or perhaps in some cases a positive motivation. And so these actions do not create negative karma when we do them, but because they interfere with the smooth functioning of the Sangha or the smooth functioning of society, the Buddha proscribed those actions, or because those are actions that could lead you down the slippery slope into the naturally negative actions, okay? So a lot of these, within the prescribed actions, some are naturally negative, like, you know, the 4 roots of killing, stealing. Here it's celibacy with monastic precepts, and lying. Okay, so those are both prescribed precepts and naturally negative actions. But then something like singing, dancing, playing music, eating in the afternoon, even taking intoxicants, those things are not naturally negative, but we abandon them because the Buddha prescribed them. In other words, they create problems, either in our meditation or among people, but the motivation for doing them isn't necessarily negative. And anybody who does them isn't necessarily creating destructive karma. Okay? Yeah?
Venerable, did you say that killing and lying were naturally negative?
Yes.
Sometimes people think they have a good intention for lying.
Yes, but thinking you have a good intention and actually having a good intention are different. Yeah? So in certain cases regarding lying, if it's for personal benefit, absolutely it's negative. Yeah, there may be certain cases in which to protect somebody's life you lie, but usually in those cases you can get around it by changing the topic, doing something else. You don't necessarily have to lie. Okay, and the example I always give is, you know, your grandma invites you over for dinner and she cooks exactly the food you don't like, and she says, how do you like it? And you know, what do? Say, Grandma, I can't stand it? You know, no, but you don't have to lie, because the question she's really asking is, I care about you, and I'm expressing that through cooking you a meal. Do you understand that? That's the question she's asking. So you can respond with, you know, I really appreciate your cooking this meal and I love coming over to visit you. Because that's true. And how the food tastes isn't really related to what she really wants to know. Okay? And I think she'll be happier if you respond in this way, because, you know, you're expressing your affection for her and letting her know that you have received her affection. Okay, so you don't need to lie and say, oh, it tastes great. You know? No. Okay? So there's so many situations in which we think we need to lie for somebody else's benefit. Mostly in those situations, it's for our benefit, because we don't want to be in the uncomfortable position of having to tell somebody the truth about something. Yeah? So we say it's for their benefit. Yeah, but it's not usually. It's for our benefit. Okay? So, in so many situations, so many little white lies we tell. You know, somebody says, can you go, you know, do you want to meet for dinner? And you don't feel like it, so you say you're busy, but you're not, you know. And you make some story, you know, not just saying I'm busy, you say I'm, you know, I already have an appointment or something like that. When you don't, yeah. It doesn't mean you have to say to the person, look, I can't stand your company. But, you know, you could say, you know, I need a little alone time right now. And that's true, you know. But so you don't have to lie to say save somebody else's feelings. Okay? Yeah, so we really need to check up on this so often. I mean, I've had people lie to me for, I don't understand why they lie. You know, because I can handle the truth. Just tell me what the truth is. I can handle it. And sometimes, I mean, it isn't even something, I really don't understand why they lie. So, you know, better just be truthful.
what you just shared about the grandmother. Myself, I sense when somebody is not happy, but they will say something else.
Right.
And that bugs me. How do you work with that? I prefer to say, your food, I don't like it at all.
Uh-huh.
I prefer to receive that than receive something that.
Uh-huh.
So how do you work with,
Yeah.
it's more, I guess it's more caring about the other person than yourself.
Yeah. It's in the case with the food, Grandma really doesn't care. She isn't asking about the food. She's asking about your relationship, okay? But if it's a practical question, I remember one time here at the Abbey, I knew somebody hadn't done something. I pretty much suspected it. But I thought I would ask rather than make a statement. And he said, oh no, I did that. And I wasn't convinced. And he came later to me and said, no, I actually didn't do it. I didn't tell you the truth. So in that kind of situation, I mean, like you, I would prefer somebody just tells me the truth. Yeah? But if somebody doesn't, I mean, what can you do?
But by kindness, not to hurt their feeling.
That's what I mean. That,
Okay.
yeah, that if you don't feel you know, if you know it's somebody who wants to hear the truth, yeah, and who won't bite off your head if you say the food's lousy, then, you know, I mean, they're asking for an honest opinion. I tried this new recipe. Do you like it? Don't you? You don't think it's so good? They're asking for feedback. And you say, no, I didn't particularly like it. Because they are actually asking for feedback on the food, and they want to know if it's something they should cook again. Yeah. But in that kind of situation, if you know they want feedback, but you don't want to say you don't like that recipe, then, you know, why are you lying? Yeah? Okay. Let's not get into a big discussion about lying right now. We can save that for this next session, okay? Yeah. Yeah, this will be the last question, then I would like to continue with this. Yeah?
Venerable, you said that in the next group, it's called that they've been destructive, that they are dependent on your motivation, and it's including intoxicants?
Yes, and that's quite surprising, isn't it? Because we would think that taking intoxicants would be amongst the naturally negative actions. My guess why it's not is because in ancient times they often would use intoxicants as an anesthetic. If somebody was injured, if somebody needs surgery or something like that, they would get them good and drunk and, you know, then yank the tooth or whatever. So it, you know, there could be that kind of reason. Okay, that's my guess. Okay, can we go on? I'll have a time for questions after we get through this. So, okay, yeah. So more about the prescribed actions. They, you know, some are naturally negative, some aren't. Yeah, the ones that aren't. Yeah, if you have a precept and you've taken a precept not to do those things, then you've committed a transgression when you do them. Yeah. And those transgressions are purified by, you know, the different ways of making amends, and then by attending posada, the confession and restoration of precepts that we do every 2 weeks. Okay, so that's how those, you know, the transgression is purified. That's the whole process of making amends and then being qualified to count as part of the quorum for doing the posada. Yeah. Then some of those actions, the proscribed actions, yeah, you may still create negative karma doing them. Okay, they by their own nature are not negative, but if you do them with a bad mental state, you create negativity as well. So in the case of taking intoxicants, if you know, it's like, you know, out of attachment and to pleasure or whatever, and then you drink or you take drugs, you know, I'm not talking about prescription medicine here. I'm talking about recreational drugs. And so you're doing it with a mind of attachment or a mind of anger, something like that, then it becomes a destructive action and also the transgression from of the precept. Okay? Or you may do it just, you know, it's like singing and dancing. You may, well, you know, those are very often done with attachment, but there are certain cases where they may not be done with attachment. You know, when we do our religious chanting and so on. Okay? So, you know, those don't create negativity. Okay? Are you getting this here? Yeah? So, yeah. So the posada helps purify the transgression part. Yeah, but then if you've done the action and it's become a negative action, then you have to do the 4 opponent powers to purify the negative or destructive karma aspect of it. Okay? Okay, so anyway, the precepts have, you know, a lot of these precepts that are not naturally negative, but our prescribed actions are things that the Sangha did that the lay people complained about. Okay, and it was very inconvenient for the lay people, or they thought that it was unbecoming for monastics to do that. So, you know, for example, there's precepts not to play in the water. There's precepts not to take a bath more than twice a month, you know, every 2 weeks. That latter one we don't keep to strictly. Yeah, it's a different culture, it's a different time. One of the reasons behind those precepts, okay, was, I can't remember which precept it's the story for, but one of them is the monks were bathing in a lake, and you know, they didn't have showers then. So the king had come out and he wanted to bathe also, but they, you know, had stopped bathing and they were just playing in the water and having a good time, and the king had to wait for them to finish, you know, before he could go bathe. But by the time they got out of the water, it was dark. And so the king had to go back to his palace without bathing. And he wasn't a happy camper. So he said to the Buddha, your monks are just playing in the water all day, or they're bathing too often, or whatever. So then the Buddha made this kind of precept. You know, you can't bathe in the water. I forget which one it was, yeah. But so it had to do with the circumstances of that particular time. Now, of course, showering, there's nothing negative, naturally negative about it. Being in the water, there's nothing naturally negative about it. But, you know, so that's another example of one of those, okay? So you could do it with a negative motivation, or you could do those actions with a neutral motivation. Okay, so that's why it's not naturally negative, but you do purify it. I mean, you do declare it when you're doing your confession, and if you've done it with an afflictive motivation, then you also purify with the 4 opponent powers. Okay, so there's a lot of precepts that it's very helpful to read the origin stories and to think about what really was the Buddha trying to get across when he made certain precepts. Okay, so in that particular example, yeah, you know, what's he trying to get across is, you know, don't do things that inconvenience other people. Yeah, don't keep doing something so long that it's, you know, it's inconvenient for somebody else. Yeah, so that's the meaning of it. So, for example, and there are certain exceptions to that precept that are in the Vinaya, like if you've been doing manual labor, if it's rained, different kind of, if you're traveling. So there are certain exceptions in the Vinaya. But, we have to look at what actually the purpose of the precept was. And then, because, for example, if we didn't bathe except every 2 weeks here, I mean, it would be bad news, okay? So, so for the benefit of sentient beings, we bathe. But, we still try and keep the meaning of the precept, which is not to inconvenience people, okay? The similar kind of thing is, eating in the afternoon, we're supposed to not eat after midday, between midday and dawn of the next morning. So there's a few considerations. India is almost at the equator, so there's not so much difference in time between sunrise in the summer and in the winter, but here there's a big difference, and so, for example, if you kept that absolutely strictly, then at 7:30 in the winter it's not light out, and you wouldn't be able to have your breakfast then, and you would be able to have your breakfast maybe, just a few hours before midday, and then you're having breakfast and lunch like real close to each other and no food the rest of the time, okay? So clearly that precept wasn't made taking in mind the differences in time between summer and winter here, another thing is that because they went on Pindapat, if they went in to the town for 3 meals a day, it would be very, very inconvenient for all the lay people, because they respect the monastics, they want to give them food. But 3 times a day they have to cook extra food when sometimes they're not even doing that much for their own family. And so to make it easy, he said, you eat 1 meal a day, but then actually the precept, you can actually eat the entire morning. And so you can have breakfast and lunch. So it was for the convenience of the lay people, not to really, inconvenience them with having to cook so much. Also, because in the evening, before the precept was made, people would go in when it was getting dark. And so there's a story of one monk who, was walking into town then, and he didn't know where the village cesspool was. And he walked right into it, and so it wasn't so safe for the monks either, going on Pindapat, at that time, So the Buddha made this, for those reasons. Also because if people ate a huge meal in the evening, then it would make it difficult for them to meditate after that. Because often we see people don't eat much at breakfast and lunch, and then they have a huge dinner, and then you feel so heavy after the meal. So those were the reasons, to not eat in the afternoon. Nowadays, some people feel that it's necessary for health considerations to do that. And so if they eat, with the meaning of taking care of their health, not because, those leftovers are just fantastic. This is why we serve leftovers in the evening, Then, it's eating at those times is not naturally negative, okay? It's still something that I really recommend if people can do it and not eat in the evening because their bodies are strong, then do that. But if you need to, your health is more important. Okay, but try not doing it. Yeah, instead of just saying, I can't. You know, try it and see for a while and see how you do. Okay, yeah. So then we'll come back here to the next 2 points that are about bringing about individual liberation. Okay, and so those are to eliminate present defilements and to prevent defilements from arising in the future. Okay, so we initially join the Sangha because we want to pacify our mind, because we look and we see that our mind is, you know, completely under the influence of afflictions, and we want to change so that we can attain liberation, so that we can, you know, really give something back to society and give something back to sentient beings. Okay, so the precepts help us to do this. If you don't have the motivation to subdue your defilements and your afflictions, if that isn't part of your interest in monastic life, then don't join the Sangha. Yeah, because unless you really intend to do that, there's no reason to join the Sangha. Yeah, and similarly, unless you have a motivation, at least seeking liberation or full awakening, you know, if you don't have that motivation, then don't join the Sangha. Yeah, because these are kind of they're the bottom line in terms of motivation for doing it. Yeah, this is one of the reasons, for example, in Taiwan, where there is an age limit. Many monasteries set age limits for people to ordain, because a lot of people, when they're elderly, you know, maybe their husband died or their wife died, their children are grown, they're all alone, they're lonely, you know, they may not have a lot of funds, and so they think, oh, I'll join the Sangha, and then the Sangha will take care of my medical expenses, they'll give me room and board, and I'll live out my old age like that. Yeah, and that's not the reason for ordaining, you know. And so I remember at my ordination, when I took ordination, they were very, very strict about that. And, you know, about your motivation and about the age limit for those reasons. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that your motivation is in accord with the purpose of taking ordination. Yeah, and it shouldn't be because, you know, you like the robes and you want to sit in the front row, and yeah, and you want people to think you're holy. And we laugh, but these motivations are very sneaky, and they come in your mind. And it's very interesting whenever you go to public teachings, at least in the Westerners section, where they don't always have the Sangha sit in ordination order. Sometimes they don't even have the Sangha sit in front. You can always tell the newly ordained people, because they go right to the front and they're going to sit in front of everybody. Not only the lay people, but also their seniors. Yeah, and you go, this is interesting. I wonder what their motivation for ordaining was. Yeah, so, you know, this is reasons why we sit in ordination order, reasons why, you know, we have to have a certain motivation to make ordained life meaningful for us. Yeah. Okay. So to prevent defilements from arising in the future, and to eliminate present defilements. So how do the precepts do this? Okay, so you know, we have a celibacy precept. Yeah, this is the big one, you know. If this is the one that is usually most difficult for people. Not always, but it's a common one that's the most difficult. And it can relate to, you know, actual sexual behavior, or it can relate to having that, you know, being in a couple relationship, having a best friend and a close friend and somebody who emotionally supports you. Okay, so you ordain, you take a celibacy precept. Then what happens? Okay, well, you know, as Venerable Jompa articulated very nicely in her talk yesterday, you know, we still have sexual energy, and especially if you're young. This is the one advantage of aging. Yeah. Is your sexual energy declines. It's really good, you know, because when you're young, I mean, you don't realize until you're older how much your life was under the influence of raging hormones when you're younger, you know? And when people tell you that, if people had told me that when I was young, I would say, I'm not under the influence of my hormones. You know, I'm just a young person, and this guy really is good, you know. But you don't realize until later, it's like the mind is just completely out to lunch, okay? Excuse me, young people in the audience, I know you don't believe me. Okay, but it's true. Okay, so you ordain. Then, you know, you start looking. And I know for me when I first ordained, because I had been married, you know, so been there, done that, got the t-shirt, but he was a really nice man, yeah? And you know, the marriage ended because I wanted to ordain. And I remember when I first ordained, if I went to town sometimes, you know, in Kathmandu, then I'd see this couple walking together hand in hand, and I'd go, oh, I remember what that was like. Oh, you know, you have your best friend, the person who loves you, protects you. I remember what that was like. You know, an attachment comes up. And then you have to catch it. You know, you have to identify it and say, this is attachment. And yeah, why did I get ordained? Because I had that, and I realized that it doesn't bring lasting happiness. That's one of the reasons I ordained. You know, if I really thought that had brought, you know, lasting happiness, I still would have been with him. Okay? So you have to work with your mind. Yeah, the precepts have set up the field in which you're going to play. You're going to play in, and you've decided that it's a good field because it's limiting things that your wisdom mind knows you don't want to do. But the defilements are going to come up anyway. And when they come up, yeah, if you're going to keep your precept, then you have to train your mind. Yeah, so it's not just a thing of, you know, I'm not going to do it. Whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah, but it's, you know, look, this is defilement in my mind that is motivating me to do that. And, you know, why do I think that being in a couple relationship is so wonderful? Well, because you have the support and the friendship, and somebody's always there, and you're special in somebody else's eyes, and there's a whole list. Yeah, I mean, isn't it? That's why the world is all in couples. You know, there's a whole list of all the benefits. But then you have to say, is that the purpose of my life? Or is that affliction? Yeah, and if it's affliction, why is it affliction? Why are all those reasons not true? And then you have to really sit on your cushion and like, okay, what are the disadvantages of having a best friend who's always there for you? Yeah, what are the disadvantages? Everybody thinks that there's benefits from that. But what are the disadvantages? You know, if your mind is set on liberation or awakening, what are the disadvantages of having a best friend who's always there for you? Tell me.
Attachment.
This person becomes your source of refuge instead of the three jewels.
Yeah, that person becomes your refuge object, not the 3 jewels.
And that person will go.
Yes.
There will be changes in that relationship. It will not, now it seems like wow, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay like that. You're going to be disappointed.
Yep.
You lose your disenchantment.
Hmm?
Cyclic.
Yeah, it prevents us from getting disenchanted with cyclic existence, and it's something that's temporary, that's going to end, and we're going to, it's impossible to continue forever. And so at the end, you're going to be left with nothing.
It interferes with us having equanimity for all people.
Yeah, definitely. Where's your equanimity, and how are you going to cultivate bodhicitta? Mm-hmm.
You don't learn how to take care of your own mind. You've always got somebody else to step in and save you.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know how to take care of your own mind, because somebody else is always going to be there, affirm how good you are, support you. Yeah.
No matter what, we create negative karma.
Yeah. Now, why do you create negative karma? It's a loving relationship. Why would a loving relationship create negative karma?
Attachment, jealousy, anger.
Yeah, because it leads to jealousy when they look at somebody else. It leads to anger because you have expectations of them, and they didn't sign up for all your expectations, and they're not going to fulfill them, and you're going to get ticked off. Yeah, so you're going to create a lot of negative karma. It's not just a loving relationship where you live happily ever after. Yeah? Do any of you have your parents' relationship? Did they live happily ever after? Yeah? Where they never quarrel, they always encourage each other in virtue? Yeah? Think about it. Think about it. Okay? So, so we really need to use our meditation to work with our mind on these kinds of issues. Yeah? Otherwise, it's impossible to keep your ordination. Yeah? Because the defilements are strong, they're habitual, we've had them from beginningless time, and they're gonna, they're not gonna roll over on their belly and say bye-bye. They're gonna go, but I'm right, and try and sabotage us. So we have to be very clear, and so that's how keeping the precepts helps us free our mind from defilements, okay? Because to keep the precepts, we have to work with our mind. Yeah. Otherwise, if you took those precepts because you decided you really didn't want to do those things. Then, after you take the precepts, you think, I'm tired of not having any money. I want some security. I want to have a nest egg for when I'm old. Yeah, and so, I need to get myself together. I have one friend who thought that way. She'd been ordained 25 years. Her brother was one of these, I won't mention the name because he's quite famous, but kind of people for getting your financial life together and whatever. And he just really gave it to her and said, you have to get your financial life together. You don't have any money. What's going to happen when you're old? And, and it created a lot of doubts in her. That wasn't the only reason she disrobed, but it was something that started the process. Yeah? So, these kind of doubts may come up. So then you have to step back and say, okay, well, is that affliction? Or is it reality? You have to discriminate. And, what's going to be meaningful to me when I'm old? Having enough money so I can get all the medical care I need and have a nice bed to lie in? Or, having a mind that's more pacified because I've practiced. What's really going to be of more benefit to me? Okay, so you have to really use the teachings to work with the defilements. Okay? So it's not like you ordain and then you live happily ever after. No. You know, we've had afflictions in our mind since beginningless time, and they're going to keep coming up. And I always tell people, as soon as you think, I've got that one mastered, you know, I'm not attracted to relationships anymore. I'm done with that. As soon as you think that,
You're in trouble.
you're in trouble, because somebody's going to come in from left field and your mind's going to go, whoa. Okay. Yeah. Or the financial thing, you know, you think, oh yeah, fine, everything's great. Then, you know, some relative's going to say something like that. Or maybe the inheritance you thought you were going to get, you don't get. Yeah, this has happened to some of my friends. You know, one of their parents died, the other one remarried. The inheritance goes to the spouse, not to the child. And then they've been left high and dry. And then, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, how much do you really believe in the, you know, the decision you've made? Yeah, how much internal strength do you have to live with less? Okay, or to be more dependent on other people. That came a lot in the discussion yesterday, didn't it? People don't want to be dependent on other people. What's going to happen? Some situation where you have to be dependent on somebody. Okay, do you feel comfortable? Can you be dependent in a gracious way and realize that people do want to help you? Okay, so these things come up and then you have to work with them. Yeah, and that's what real Dharma practice is. Okay, the bowing, the chanting, the robes, the hairdo, these things are outer things. The real Dharma practice is working with your mind when that kind of stuff comes up, because that's actually facing the afflictions. Okay, so we have to be very clear on that, you know, that it's a lifelong commitment to face your mental garbage. Yeah. Yeah, and if you really don't want to face your mental garbage, or you want to face it part-time, and you want a partner there who will make you feel good when your mental garbage is very strong, then, you know, you need to really think what kind of choices you're going to make. Okay? Yeah. And I say this because people have this very idealistic vision that, you know, you ordain, you shave your head, and you put on robes, and you go in the monastery and your afflictions do not come with you. You know, your afflictions are gone. You are now holy. Yeah? And everybody's going to treat you well, and forget it. You know.
You think there have been never afflictions, but everybody else has.
Right, yes. You think now I have no afflictions, so when I have problems it's because other people have afflictions. That makes for a really delightful life. Doesn't it? Yeah, you're going to be real happy with that attitude. Yeah. So, you know, but people believe that in some kind, you know, they're going to float into ordained life. And they think, oh, now I'm ordained. All I'm going to do is meditate. And go from bliss to bliss, you know, until somebody says,
Take out the garbage.
yeah, right. Take out the garbage. The recycling is done down there. You're on the rota for, you know, mopping the floor and vacuuming.
And take your garbage at the same time.
Yes, and take your garbage. Yeah, and by the way, the person who does the weeding on the back patio, please put your weeds away. Don't leave them there. Yeah, I don't know who it is. I have some suspicion. But, you know, yeah, so you have people saying things like that, you know. Yeah, it's very good you pull out the weeds, but please don't leave them where everybody walks. Yeah, so you're going to have this kind of stuff come up, yeah, and you have to be committed to working with it, yeah. And just when you think, oh, I've got it all ironed out, you know, everybody in the community likes me, I've got it. Yeah, I spent, you know, a few months, a few years getting on everybody's good side. They all like me. Now I can kind of relax, you know, because when we have those meetings, they're not going to be talking about me. As soon as you think that, boy, you know. Okay, so it's a rock tumbler, you know. We're taking off each other's rough edges. But there's a purpose, you know, and it's not sadistic. You know, it's really for a higher purpose. Yeah, but don't think it's going to be sweet and easy. Okay, so those are the 9 factors in detail. Then the one in general, okay, is the ultimate goal. Yeah, so the ultimate goal of setting up the precepts. Remember I told you before, you know, I always thought, what's the ultimate goal of keeping precepts? It's to get awakened. Isn't that the ultimate goal of everything, to get awakened? Well, here it doesn't say that. It says, for the Dharma to be forever sustained. What? The precepts aren't designed for my awakening? They're designed, you know, for the sustenance of the Dharma, that I'm not joining the Sangha just for my own awakening, that I have to think about sustaining the Dharma for future generations? Yes. You know? And so I really had to contemplate this one a long time. Why is it for the Dharma to be sustained and not my own awakening? Well, because if the Dharma is not sustained from one generation to the next, there's no way I'm going to get awakened. And there's no way anybody else is going to get awakened. Yeah, we have to have the transmitted Dharma, the scriptural Dharma, being transmitted from generation to generation, and the realized Dharma, you know, people gaining realizations and then reaching out to others and showing the path. So we need the Dharma to be sustained. Otherwise, as one individual, we're sunk, let alone the rest of the world being sunk. Okay, so when you join the Sangha, you know, again, it's a change in mentality. It's not just my Dharma practice, my awakening. It's for the sustenance of the Dharma for a long time, so that many, many beings can benefit from it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's something it took me a long time to understand, and it wasn't until I actually took the full ordination that I began to understand that. Okay, so now question time. Yeah.
Well, the last part here, that goes along with us wanting personal awakening so that we can lead all to full awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know,
So
it had...
even then, our own liberation is not an end goal anyway.
Right.
It's the liberation of all beings.
Right, but and that's how we approach it, as people following the Bodhisattva vehicle, but people following the hearer solitary realizer vehicle, their main motivation is their own liberation. Yeah, so for them too, it involves stretching beyond that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you graciously accept people's help? First of all, you realize that you're not an independent being and you need help. And your whole life you've depended on other beings, so it isn't anything new. Second of all, you trust other people that they actually want to help you. I know for me this was hard because I sometimes help people who I actually don't want to help, but I do it out of obligation. So I automatically assume that other people are going to have the same rotten motivation that I do. But that isn't true. That isn't true. Many times people sincerely want to help us. And if we say, no, 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 I'm okay, they don't feel good about it. They actually want to help. They want to be involved in our lives. Yeah? And they have a good motivation. And if we get all arrogant about, nobody's going to help me, we're denying them the opportunity to connect with us and to show their kindness and affection. So again, it's something of realizing it's not all about me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember one time, this wasn't over a health issue, but one time somebody offered a gift to me, and I thought this person, doesn't have a lot of money, and they shouldn't be offering this to me. Yeah? And I wanted to return it to them, but the person really wanted me to have this. And I saw that, for that person, it was much more important for them that I accept their gift than that they have, than the financial inconvenience. They wanted to give me a watch, It was the watch they were wearing. They'd have to replace it, But I knew it was somebody who didn't have much money. And I realized, no, it's actually more important for this person's happiness and well-being, and for them to create merit, that I accept the gift than that I don't. Hmm? Mm-hmm.
My question is more about, how you run this place. First you need to be an anagarika, next, you will ordain,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decide to ordain, full ordain.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if it is in your mind to study to be a geshe?
If you what? If you
Mind study to be a geshe.
geshe. Okay.
How you,
Yeah.
or how you think of it.
Okay. So if your motivation is really to do the geshe studies, there's places now where you can go and do that study without ordaining. Previous years that it wasn't possible. But now there's, at least in the West, there's the master's program, there's Geshe Studies program at different Dharma centers in the West. And if you want to learn Tibetan and do it the Tibetan way, you can do it at the IBD, the Buddhist Dialectic School in Dharamsala, and you can be a lay person there. I don't think they will give you the Geshe degree. I think you have to be ordained to get the degree. But to do the studies, you can enroll at the school and do them. Yeah? So you have to, again, see, what your purpose is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the question of Stallion, for me, I realized that my difficulty to receive help, it was behind it was the affection. I had difficulty to open my heart to affection.
Yeah.
That was very difficult.
Yeah. Sometimes we have a hard time opening our heart to others' care and affection, and to really accepting it, because we have this whole pattern of, I'm not going to get too close to anybody. I have this wall, and here's somebody who is actually, expressing care and affection, and immediately our suspicion comes up. Yeah. So this is why we have to work with our afflictions, isn't it? Because that's an afflicted mind. Yeah, it's an afflicted mind. I'm an independent being, and I'm scared of getting close to people. Yeah. that's affliction. That's not for the benefit of all sentient beings. Hmm?
I don't know if the Dalai Lama once said this. So everyone you meet that you think you meet, I meet you. Another way of saying dependence.
Yeah, I think it's more, because some people go on the side of I don't need other people, and some people go on the side of I need everybody. You know, and everybody should pay attention to me. Everybody should do what I want. Everybody should give me things. Everybody should take care of me. Everybody should praise me and prop me up emotionally because I don't believe in myself. So because of that, I tend not to use the word like I need everybody or everybody needs me. It's like we're dependent. Yeah, to me, dependent has much more of a healthy tone to it, whereas need, the word need can get pretty sticky.
That's what he meant, we are dependent. That's what he actually...
Yeah, we're very dependent on each other. Impossible, you know. That's why I said even you go up to the highest mountain, you're still dependent on other sentient beings. Hmm? Okay. We have 4 more minutes. Where are all your questions? Now when I need your questions.
We can start a circle earlier.
Yeah. Oh no, some people rose there. Yeah.
As being a Sangha in the West, the Western culture is, in most cases, not so, can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
But then I come across something, will ask for help. How does that go in line with the advice of what Tikkun has been given?
Okay, so the question is...
Any
Uh-huh.
support. You know, several web pages which you can put your name on it and saying, I need help, or
Okay.
Crowdfunding, or all these things,
Uh-huh.
rather than kind of trusting, waiting, I'm not sure,
Uh-huh.
until it comes to you.
Okay.
So how
What about reaching out and asking for help as a monastic?
How can one do that ethically?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very tricky situation. We should not directly ask lay people for help because it can be very inconvenient for them. They think you're a Sangha, they respect the Sangha. You know, you just ask them for, you know, a $300 pair of shoes and they're going, oh, I didn't anticipate, you know, shoes costing that much. I was thinking about $40 or $50, you know. So you have to be very, very careful about that. And actually, you know, in the Vinaya, we don't ask people for things. If somebody has offered something, if somebody says, tell me what you need, you know, or tell me when you need something, then you remember who said that. But then you have to also have an idea of of that person's economic status. Yeah, so when they say tell you what they need, you know, tell me when you need something, do they mean, you know, tell me when you need a box of tissues, or are they saying tell me when you need a round-trip ticket to India for teachings? Because there's a big difference in the cost of those, you know. And if we come back with, well, I want a round-trip ticket to India, but it's somebody that doesn't have that kind of money, it really puts them in or even they have it, that wasn't the intent behind their offering, then it puts them in a very awkward place. Yeah. In terms of crowdfunding and things online, I wouldn't do it for myself. Yeah. You know, if we had a situation here at the Abbey where you know, maybe somebody else wanted to come and they needed some airfare and they didn't have it. You know, we might put it on for them. Yeah. Or maybe some of their old friends might put it on for them. But I think kind of doing it for yourself is a bit dicey, personally. Okay. Yeah, but often, you know, other Sangha members can. I know in the Theravada tradition, my Theravada friends, they keep this very strictly, you know, in terms of not asking people who haven't prior offered something. But one person will say to the benefactor, "Oh, so and so needs something," so they'll point out somebody else's need, but not their own need. Yeah. But I think we do have to be careful exactly what we're asking for, and if it's you know, there are extra winter jackets in the Sangha closet, but you don't really like the winter jackets. You have your eye on one that you really like, that will last a long time, that's like really warm. Yeah, and you don't like the one that's in the closet anyway. It's a little bit scuffed up because somebody else wore it before you, you know, and they may have cooties. And you know, so I want a new jacket. You know, there's where you have the mind that's always grasping, you know, more and better, more and better. It's like, that's why it's, you know, we first go to the closet. If something fits us, it may not be the ideal what we want, but we use it, you know. Of course, if you have health problems and you need special shoes because your feet, you know, you had surgery on your feet or you have deformities or whatever, then of course, you know, that's something that person needs special attention. But just for normal things, the point is we don't have to get everything we want. And it's good for us not to get everything we want. Okay, does that answer what your question is? Or you want to ask it again?
What if nobody offers? For example, does one trust that working with one's mind, to be content with what it is and accept the situation and do as best as one can?
Yeah.
Or does one try to make one's own money then? Or what in the case if this situations don't ripen?
Okay, give me an example so I have a context of what you're talking about.
There are not many placements which are run the same as a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So even a Sangha member, you have to be there to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Be in paying for it. It doesn't matter, it may be small, but it's still something you have to come up with.
Yeah.
So whether it be just for facility fee or for minimal travel costs to use a community car, so those costs might be minimal, but if you don't have any
income, yeah,
to come up with it,
what do you do? Yeah. Okay. Before I answer your question directly, I think this is one of the problems in the West, that I mean, the Sangha should be supported. And Dharma centers charging the Sangha, which, you know, most Dharma centers do, sometimes even to go to teachings. Yeah, I don't think that's right. I think that, you know, if you're operating a Dharma center, you should support the Sangha because, you know, but they're all thinking in terms of money. I mean, that's the problem, is people think in terms of money. They don't think in terms of merit. And so the Dharma set up things like, well, unless we get so many people coming to the teaching and they each pay this much, you know, so sorry, we can't have you come. Doesn't matter how long you've been ordained, but you don't have the money to pay. I really disagree with that, you know, and I was subjected to that at when I was a baby Sangha, you know, where I couldn't go to teachings because I didn't have the money. And I think that's really wrong on the part of Dharma centers. They should see the Sangha as a blessing, you know, because people who are in robes really trying to do something have offered their life to the Dharma. So help them out. Yeah. Fortunately, in Asia, it's different, and people really, they like the Dharma and they want to support the Sangha. In the West, it's quite difficult, yeah. So, yeah, I disagree with that. Then the thing is, but that's the situation, so what do you do? Okay, so this, if I can again avoid answering your question directly, right, I'll come to it. So if you're somebody who hasn't ordained yet, okay, and you're thinking of ordaining, and you're thinking of going to live at a Dharma center, then you need to have your finances in order before you ordain, yeah? And to, you know, work some, get the money so that you can pay these kinds of costs and so on. Because you know before you go into it that, you know, as I explained, that for the Tibetan Lamas, their main concern is their monasteries in India. Yeah, it's not supporting the Western Sangha. So you need to be prepared before you ordain. Even people come here to ordain, they need to have some savings. Okay, because like I said, unless we know people are really serious and committed and they're going to last as a monastic, we don't have tons of money to buy health insurance and give everybody who lives here health insurance and cover all their medical costs in this country, you know. So even coming here, where when you're fully ordained, you get your health insurance paid, you know, is different. We give everybody room and board here and all, but the health insurance, I mean, insurance is not so bad, but healthcare costs is like, that's astronomical, okay? So, you know, people have to ask a friend or relative before they ordained, you know, to give them some support, yeah, while, you know, after they ordain. Some of their old friends or their relatives, okay? Other people, you know, when I ordained, I didn't do that. I had one friend, my ex-husband, promised to give me $20 a month. So that was good. I went to India. I ran out of money. I had $50 to my name. You know, it was difficult. I just trusted, and I wound up going to a Dharma center, and they didn't charge me, but I had to work very hard. And when I left, they didn't give me enough money for the whole ticket back to India. And, you know, blah, blah, I could tell you my whole sub story. You want to hear it? My sub story, I could tell you my whole. And so having already ordained, and then you're in this situation, what I would recommend is, you know, IMI has a fund where they support Sangha. You know, so applying, if you're studying, applying for support for, through them. I don't know the extent to which they help or how much their fund has. I'm not involved with that. It does involve trusting, yeah. Or at this point too, you know, I think, you know, if you're not somebody who's a monastic here, you know, go to your family or your friends and see if anybody wants to help you out with things. I know what I did is, this is many years ago, I put just a sign on the bulletin board in the Dharma Center, you know, I need money for you know, I need some support, Sangha member needs support. And I just put it there because that wasn't asking anybody directly, it was just stating what was needed. And then somebody came and said, yeah, I'd like to help you. So, yeah, so you can do that. Yeah, if you feel that it's okay with your family, you know, you can ask them for money, but you also have to think, is it going to be sticky? Yeah, or are your parents going to get resentful and say, what, you know, I told you not to ordain, and now look at you, you don't have any money, why don't you just robe and go out and get a job? If that's going to happen, don't ask your parents for money, okay? You know, same for old friends, somebody who clearly doesn't see the purpose in supporting the Sangha, don't ask them. But you might put, you know, a note on the bulletin board in the center. And it's good to say what you need the money for, yeah, or how much you need, and just say any help would be appreciated. Yeah.
It's also shown on Buddhist order organization, Dutch Buddhist order instrumental.
Wow, there's a group in Germany that, wow, who does that? Really? Oh, fantastic. Very good. Yeah, contact them. She's good. Tupten Children's very, that Tupten Children. Well, this one here. No, she's very good.